There were some good things about my old job, you know, the one that I had before God picked me up by the scruff of the neck and tossed me into ministry. But one of the least favorite things about that job, one of the things that was most troubling, was, well, it was having to explain to people exactly what it was that I actually did. I mean, you know, I'd be at a party and I'd be talking to this guy and he'd say, well, you know, I'm an accountant at a firm in D.C. What do you do? And I would say, well, I manage a research grant-making program that provides funds and solicits funds for private foundations so that we can engage in a multi-stage peer-reviewed grant competition to support and disseminate the findings of social science research into the dynamics of volunteerism, philanthropy, and the nonprofit sector, both domestically and internationally. And there'd be silence. And my conversation partner's eyes would just glaze over, and he'd be unresponsive, and, you know, he's drooling a little and twitching slightly. And after having repeatedly witnessed the same result, I grew convinced that law enforcement officers could probably use a weaponized version of that job description to take down suspects harmlessly. Beat a taser every time. But there were good things about that job. I mean, once you got through explaining what it was, like the things I learned about how and why people give to charities or give to support causes. And one of the things that surprised me was why people give. I mean, you'd think, for the most part, when you're giving to charity would be one of the most selfless things you could do. But especially in the 1990s, that started to change a little bit. People expected, wanted, needed their charity, whatever they gave, to work for them in return. You don't just give. You need to get something back. And the more you give, the more you expect to get back. And the more powerful you are, the more encouragement and patting on the back you expect for your giving. You might want to say alumni who give to their schools. You give a little bit and they'll pester you for the rest of your life, and I suppose that's one kind of honor. But if you give a lot to a college, a lot to a university, if you're at that very tippy top tier of donors, you get the single highest honor that any donor could receive, and that is your very own building, named after you. If you walk around on the campus at College Park, you know exactly what that means. You take a wander through that campus, you look around at the buildings. You know, you've got the Mitchell building, you've got the McKeldin Library, you've got the Lee building, you've got McKeldin Hall, you've got Shriver Lab, you've got the McKeldin Institute for Applied Business Puppetry, you have the Montgomery Burns Center for Gerontology, you have the Hannibal Lecter School for the Culinary Arts. The list just goes on and on and on. You get honors for the things that you're interested in. But getting that recognition is only the beginning. In the 1990s, a trend began that is continuing today. You don't just give to a charity. You only give to a charity if that charity agrees to do exactly what you want. It's called donor choice. And it means bringing the consumer mentality into our giving. It's like saying, I mean, here's an example. All right, your charity helps the blind? Great. But I'm only interested in giving money to you if you have a project to give audiobook versions of Stephen Colbert's latest book to blind kids in mourning. I mean, yeah, maybe those kids were expecting an operation to restore their sight, and I know that's what you usually do, but I think Colbert is a really funny guy, and who doesn't like to laugh? And you do want my money, don't you? We expect to give in exactly the way we choose. We expect to do that only in the way that we choose. Our giving should reflect us, should reflect what we want. After all, the world revolves around us, and the more money we have, the truer that is. We should have the right to decide exactly what we give and everything we get back in return for that. Right? Well, though the story we heard from 2 Kings this morning comes to us from deep within the Middle Iron Age, 2,800 years ago, Naaman was just such a person. He was, if you will, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff of the Aramean army. The Arameans are the folks who live in what we now call Syria. And by all accounts, he was a very crafty, a very successful military commander. He may have led, in fact, the Arameans to several major and decisive victories over both the army of Israel and the army of Judah combined. He delivered a decisive defeat at the Battle of Ramoth Gilead, where he managed to kill the king of Israel, Ahab. Naaman was a powerful, powerful man, but he also had a powerful problem. See, in most of our English translations, it tells us that he had leprosy. He had that blight of the ancient world in which your skin, your flesh, rots away while you're still alive. The actual word in the Hebrew, though, is just kind of a catch-all phrase. It means he had a skin disease. But whichever way you slice it, he had something that was pretty nasty. And all of the Clearasil in the ancient world was not going to clear it up. However, on one of the raids they had gone on, one of the raids into Israel, his army had brought back a slave. They brought back someone who managed to pass the word on once she heard that there might be someone in Israel who could help her master. There could be a solution for Naaman. And the name of that solution was the prophet Elisha, the disciple of the great prophet Elijah. And Elisha was renowned for his ability to heal. So why not go down there? Naaman, seeing a possibility, talked to his boss, talked to the Syrian king. And the king, who was eager to help his trusted warrior, gave a donation to him along with a letter, so he could go down to the king of Israel and make it absolutely clear that, well, it was time to heal him. And this was not a small donation. The king of Syria gave to Naaman what in today's measurements would be, 750 pounds of silver, 150 pounds of gold, and 10, Dolce & Gabbana suits or outfits or whatever those things are. And there was no way Naaman was going to manage to cram all of that into his carry-on. He had chariots and horses on the way down.